Hi everyone, I'm Claire. Welcome to my channel and welcome to the first video of my October readathon. To be included in this video, I believe, subject to change, my final thoughts on Stephen Graham Jones's The Only Good Indians. I am still 20 pages away from the end, so I will be back to give you my thoughts on this. But other than that, I think I'm going to be having a little bit of fun today, and based on the TBR that I put together loosely in my last video, I'm going to be reading some things that I think might be a little goofy. Don't really have proof that they are going to be goofy, but we're just going to go with it, and this might turn out completely wrong. But I think I'm going to be doing Delilah S. Dawson's Guillotine and The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Andrew F. Sullivan. I've seen other people read them, and their reactions have me thinking that they might be a little goofy. I think that's kind of the direction I want to lean in with this video over the next day or two. This book isn't like super heavy, but it has heavier themes, and I kind of just want like a quick break from that before I jump into anything more serious. I think that's enough of my blabbering on for this intro. Let's get into it. Hello everyone, it is now Sunday, October 5th, and I have a couple of updates for you. First up, I finished The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. As predicted, it is a 5-star for me. It is not only probably going to be a favorite of the year, but an all-time favorite for me. I absolutely loved this book. I have this thing where whenever I find a book that is like an all-time favorite for me, I have an especially hard time describing why I enjoyed it, and an even harder time leaving any semblance of a review whatsoever. So I'll say a few things about it, but again, it's always kind of been hard for me to articulate what I love about a book that I really love, and I think it's because there's this sort of unspoken pressure for me to do it, like inside myself, to do it justice and to sort of convince you why I love it and to convince you to love it as well, or to convince anyone why I love it. And obviously that's not the point, but that's kind of how my brain works. So first, plot. I went into this book with very little knowledge about the plot and about what was going to happen. I knew it was a revenge story and it had something to do with animals and nature. Besides that, I think you should generally know that it follows 4 Blackfeet men, and they, over a decade prior to the timeline we're following, they were involved in something where they ended up doing something, being very ambiguous on purpose, that is now shaping their present. There is this entity, if you will, as the back of the book says, that is coming after them and exacting revenge for what happened 10 years prior. That's kind of the whole thing. It is a horror novel, obviously. In terms of what I really liked about it that I can say, just like off the top of my head, is that I really loved the plot. I thought it was very unique, and adding in this nature and animal element to, a classic revenge story is super interesting. There's so much to learn in this book, actually, not only with regard to social commentary, but also related to nature and life on reservations for Native individuals, especially in northern Montana and in northern America in general. For me, one of the biggest reasons why I loved it so much is because it's set in Montana. Part of my childhood was spent in northern Missoula. There's a certain atmosphere to being there where I kind of think it from the lens of psychology a little bit. There's this thing called, the awe of nature, or awe in nature. And you definitely get that in places like that. I'm sure if anyone who's watching is Canadian or from any of these areas, you probably know what I'm talking about, but there's this essence of untouched nature. And Stephen Graham Jones references this quite a bit throughout the book, where there are characters kind of staring out or looking out into the wilderness and thinking of life hundreds or thousands of years ago, what it looked like, and how there are areas of these types of places that are completely untouched by humanity, or not completely, but almost completely untouched by humanity. It is such a good setting for a horror novel to be in an area that is still belonging to Earth, right? It still belongs to the animals mostly, and it still belongs to the wilderness. So that makes for a really great atmosphere and setting, in my opinion. I love his writing, and honestly, the only other thing I can say probably at this moment that I think is important to get out, given that I've now told you that I love this book, is that I think it's actually scary. I think what adds to the horror in this is the entity that is exacting this revenge has such a terrifying way of doing it, and its presence in general is quite horrifying, and there's a lot of this. It just got so dark. Okay, so I guess all I have to say is that it is actually scary, and so it is an effective horror novel in that way. I really enjoyed reading from these characters' perspectives, each and every single one of them. I really loved the social commentary and how much I learned from this, and I love learning from a fiction book because that's just like, you know, 2 for 1. I was thinking about it for a long time, and I still am after reading it, so it definitely left a mark on me. I think at the end of the last clip, I had mentioned that once I finish The Only Good Indians, I'm looking for something a little lighthearted or more lighthearted in horror, and I think I used the word goofy specifically. This is not goofy, but Delilah S. Dawson's Guillotine is definitely what I was looking for. It is your classic, I wouldn't say satirical, but it's social commentary, eat the rich type of horror. Rich people getting their comeuppance, essentially, who treat service workers and the general population like garbage. So we're following Des, our main character. She's a young woman who I believe is about to graduate with a degree in fashion, and she did not grow up with the most opportunity, and she doesn't have a lot of connections. So she's quickly realizing that in the fashion world, to get a job or an internship, she needs those types of connections. When she was at a bar one night, a young man is flirting with her pretty aggressively and puts his phone number in her phone. What's his name again? Patrick. He is the son, or one of the sons, of a very famous owner and CEO of a fashion magazine. So she decides that she's going to essentially fake date him. He thinks it's real, but she's going to, you know, play along to get an in with him and his family so that she can kind of develop those connections and hopefully get a job or an internship out of it once she graduates. So they're dating, and she's kind of pushing it along and doing what she needs to do to get in the position where she can meet his mother. He is going to his family's private island for Easter and invites her along, or she kind of invites herself, but she comes along. Things kind of take a weird turn after that. This island is filled with a boatload of servants and workers who are all clad in this very specific pink outfit, and they have like a weird sort of culty like behavior going on. She has to sign a bunch of forms and NDA, all this like uber rich type stuff. So they have a few meals. She meets all these people in the family. They're all a little uppity, rude. They're rude not only to her but to staff. They're quite demanding. There's this sexism going on where the men in the family are treated a lot differently than the women. All of a sudden, things take a complete turn. Like, when I'm telling you, my jaw hit the floor, fell open. That was how shocked I was reading this. There were multiple times where I should have seen it coming. The servants, in summary, are going to fight back. So that's essentially the whole book, and I love that it was a novella because we don't really get to know any characters super in depth. It's more about the story and about this revenge. It was a very wild ride, and I had a lot of fun reading it. That was a 4.5 star read for me, I think. I'm now in the middle of Chuck Tingle's Lucky Day. I mentioned this in the last video that I'm about 50 pages in. Now I am 130 pages in, so I have less than 100 pages to go. At first, this wasn't really doing it for me. I felt like it was kind of lulling a little bit, and I wasn't really wanting to pick it back up, but I kind of pushed through. and I finally got to a point in the book, the last couple of chapters, where I want to keep reading and I want to see what's going to happen. So essentially we're following a woman named Vera who at the start of the book is launching her own book. She's a statistician. She's launching a book about unfair odds at a certain casino. She's having her book release party. She invites her mother and she gets in a fight with her mother because she reveals to her mother that she's bisexual, and her mother says some pretty nasty, horrible things to her about bisexuality and about her in general, storms out of this restaurant that they're at. Essentially what ensues is utter, complete chaos. There are monkeys hitting people with typewriters. There are people being strung up by parade balloons. There are planes falling out of the sky. And this will later be known as the low probability event. So this was a day 4 years ago from our main timeline where all of this stuff happened and approximately 8 million people died as a result. Fast forward a little bit, our main character Vera has been, for the last 4 years, she survived obviously, she's been rotting away in her mother's house, and she essentially doesn't believe in anything anymore. After that event, she doesn't believe in science and prediction and probability, and that essentially she thinks that nothing matters, and she's essentially become this nihilist who wants nothing to do with the world, and she's just essentially quietly awaiting death. Well, then a man shows up at her door. He is an agent with the Low Probability Event Commission, which is this government agency that operates without any boundaries, without any borders. They are essentially investigating the low probability event and what might have caused it. He is recruiting her specifically because she wrote that book, like I said at the very beginning, about this casino. It turns out that this casino might be more involved in the low probability event than anyone could have guessed, and that they might be the key to connecting all of the deaths together. That's essentially the premise. They're going to go on an investigative mission and figure out how the casino is involved, what other events are happening regarding probability throughout the country, throughout Nevada, which is where this casino is. And I'm really liking it because it's picking up quite a bit. We're learning a lot about this casino and their dealings and some of the shady stuff they're doing. And there's a lot of talk about existentialism and nihilism, and I think, and depression, and I think that makes it a very interesting book, kind of bringing all of this together. I have never read a book by Chuck Tingle before, but I have heard that their plots are very novel usually, and completely unique and very exciting. So I'm excited to finish that one actually, and I will give you my final thoughts later. Lastly, I have started The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Andrew F. Sullivan. I am only 64 pages into this. I finished part 1, we're on part 2 now. This is hilarious. This book is so ridiculous. This family just moved into this house, which is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and it's a man, a woman, married, and their young son. So pretty early on, we learn that our main character, Trent, has some identity issues and some low self-esteem. We learn that there's some event at his work that occurred that maybe it didn't start these issues with him, but it kind of exacerbated them and kind of kicked all of that into gear for him. So they just moved into this new house. It looks very nice on the inside. We learn pretty quickly that Trent has like an anger against or toward construction workers. He almost thinks like that they're manlier than him. So, and I mean manlier as in like conventional manliness. So he doesn't like them. So we learn that pretty quickly. And as things start to slowly fall apart in the house, or issues come up like cracks or creaks in certain floorboards or whatever it may be, we learn that he is determined to fix it all on his own. So he starts having these interactions with different construction workers at places like Lowe's or Home Depot. He starts getting confrontational with people. He develops a very weird fascination with a YouTuber called Handyman Hank, I believe. Anyway, I'm only 64 pages in, so my thoughts might change, or probably will change, let's be honest. But so far, I'm not really seeing any horror elements, really. I'm still trying to grasp the plot, and grasp how Trent and his wife and his son, which we are getting chapters from all of their perspectives, which kind of unofficially, which is very interesting and intriguing. So we will see how that goes. Thank you for tuning in to this very lengthy update, and I'll see you in the next clip. A few more updates before I wrap up this video. I finished Chuck Tingle's Lucky Day, and I think I'm going to give it a 4-star rating. It was good. It was enjoyable. I don't know, it's just one of those books that I finished it and I kind of thought about it a little bit, and it doesn't feel like a 5-star read to me. I think there were times, maybe towards the middle of it, when our two main characters are kind of going through the motions of their detective work, and it just wasn't for me. I think in those areas, I just didn't find that as enjoyable. I really liked the last 50 pages. I like where the book went and where the plot went, and I really like how it ended as well. There were certain aspects of this plot-wise that weren't really for me necessarily. So I think a 4 is where I'm gonna land at. I don't really have anything else to say about the plot that I haven't said already, because I think if I said any more, it would kind of give away what goes on in the book. Not that there are a lot of twists and turns, but it does make for a more interesting read if you only know what I had said previously or what you know from the blurb. I enjoyed the social commentary and the underlying themes of this book more than I enjoyed the actual plot and its characters. I did find the characters interesting and uniquely written. I just think there is a lot of repetition in how the characters are described and how their backgrounds are described, if that makes sense. So there's quite a lot of this repetition of existentialism and nihilism and this sense of nothing matters, right? So like I said, nihilism. So, and I understand that that's a big part of the book. I just felt like it was maybe too much. And again, I can see why it's there for the purpose of, you know, our main character, but for me, I just think it went a little too overboard. Besides that, I have not finished the handyman method yet. I just haven't been wanting to pick it back up. I'm not just gonna leave it. I will eventually finish it this month, but I have not gotten any further, so I will update you on that book later in the month in a different video probably. But I did read Comfort Me with Apples. Wow, what a book. This was another 5-star for me, so I have 2 5-star books in this video, which is fantastic. I know this book is pretty divisive. I've seen 5-star ratings, I've seen 1-star ratings, so I know not everyone's gonna love it, so I wouldn't blanket recommend it to pretty much anyone. I think from what you've seen of books that I've read, if you have similar tastes, you'd probably like this. I shouldn't describe anything about it because it's only 100 pages, and if you go into it blind, it has a greater effect. The reveals have more zhuzh, if you will. I would recommend to maybe get it from the library if you're able to, or if you're somebody who likes audiobooks, get it as an audiobook, because I don't think it's a book that a lot of people can confidently buy and expect to give like an insanely good rating. I loved it. I thought the writing was super interesting and lush and almost dramatic, but I feel like that actually fit the book and the theme of the book super well. As a package, like writing, plot, everything, it's so cohesive in my opinion. I can understand why people might struggle with certain things in it in terms of how it's written or the setup to the big reveal towards the end of the book. I thought it was just very well executed. If this was a project, the execution and the implementation of certain themes and style choices, I think worked very, very well, and I was not expecting, as usual for me, I was not expecting the ending or the reveal or any semblance of the explanation for what's going on in the book and at the beginning of the book. And I think that's why I liked the writing so much, because I think it lends to this atmosphere of you're trying to figure out what's going on. It's a little convoluted, kind of abstract, and I really, really liked that about it. So that I think is going to be another favorite for me. I really don't want to say anything about it, like I said, because it is only 100 pages. So anything I tell you about the plot is potentially just going to ruin the whole book. And I do think, as a lot of people say, it is one of those books that you should go into blind. Overall, I think this was a great kickoff to my reading this month, and I think that about wraps it up for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.